A 16-year-old girl, Liberty Wells, who goes by Libby, returns to her family lake house after summer camp. While on the drive, her mother, Michelle Wells, a romance novelist, offers to let Libby practice driving. She becomes excited and start to drive. After arriving at the house, Libby meets her mother's new boyfriend, John, an aquatic geneticist. He gives her a bracelet with symbols for the goddess of fertility.
O tribe's stone of life.
Libby goes to her room and wears beautiful dress seemingly to seduce John. During dinner, John explains that his work involves trying to help creatures adapt to changing environments. They also told her how they met. Later that night, Libby goes to the kitchen and she hears loud sexual moaning and runs back to her bed. John stands in her doorway and lingers while Libby pretends to be asleep. The next morning, Libby interrupts Michelle and John kissing.
I'm gonna make you some breakfast.
Later, Michelle and Libby dig up time capsules buried in the yard, and they have an argument about Libby thinking Michelle doesn't care about her grandparents until Michelle tells Libby she felt unwanted by her father. Libby explores the lake and is bitten by a large insect. But out of nowhere, John shows up and helps her by blowing in her wound and told her she gonna be okay. John told her he is finishing his research and will leave soon, saying he don't want to be the problem between Libby and her mother. She asked him if he loves her. John said he loves her very much. Libby, hearing this, she told him to stay.
Last I checked, she wasn't feeling real great.
Libby returns to the house to find that Michelle is ill, and Michelle reveals that John asked her to marry him and she said yes. Libby told her she loves her and she is happy for both of them. Michelle also told her that she lied to John about her age, and she is planning to tell him soon. Later, Libby sees John undressed through the window and become very driven by his body and looks. She then goes to the basement to speak to John and learns that he is working with parasites. John explained the species of the parasites. He is very passionate about his work and knows every detail about the parasites.
To their host. It's beautiful.
Libby told him he is kind of weird dude, which John responded by laughing. John invited Libby to go with him to the lake to get some sample. Libby agreed. While in the lake, Libby asked John some personal questions, like his age and where he had gone to school. John said he is 30 and he went to private school. She told him she is planning to apply to Cambridge University. Even if it is too far, she is hoping to be accepted. Suddenly, Libby starts to menstruate, and when John sees the blood, he attempts to clean it up with his shirt and touches her. After that, thing become awkward, but John tried to make her feel ease by licking the blood, which freaked Libby out. They return to the house, and while Libby showers, John sneaks into the bathroom to smell Libby through the curtain, and even smell her clothes, and leaves. Libby removes the bracelet given to her by John to find a red mark on her wrist. She finishes her shower and goes to her mom's room to check on her mom, but she finds John touching her. She closed the door. Then Libby texts her friend Marley and asks her to come to the house. Then she finds sandwich in her door with apology letter from John. That night, Libby wakes up and sees John walking into the lake, which is emitting red lights. John suddenly appears, completely dry, and tells Libby that he suffers from sleepwalking, but Libby walks away, not believing him at all. The next morning, Michelle sends Libby into town to get medicine and a pregnancy test. And while there, Libby follows a man who looks like John down the street with another woman, but the pharmacist catch up to her and ask her to pay for the stuff she got. Libby returns to the house and finds Marley. She goes to Michelle's room and gives her the medicine. Libby then goes to her friend and tell her that John touched her inappropriately, and Marley urged her to tell Michelle, even call the cops on him. Marley, seeing Libby afraid of John, she goes upstairs to tell Michelle everything. After waking up, Libby finds Michelle and John. She asked them about Marley. Michelle told her that she left a while ago, and she did not want to wake her up. And Michelle says that she is pregnant. Libby is disappointed and Michelle thinks that she is making up lies about John touching her, but Libby insists that it was not a mistake, and told her that he even licked the blood, but Michelle yelled at her saying she make up stuff every time she start dating, and even asked Libby to apologize, but John hugs her and told her it was not necessary. Libby sees that John has a nictitating membrane and tries to pull Michelle away from John, but Michelle slaps Libby. Out of anger, Libby reveals Michelle's age, which is 42, not 35. Hearing this, John leaves. When Michelle tried to stop him, his eyes changed and told her to not follow him. Michelle yells at Libby, saying how dare she ruin her relationship, but Libby tells her that John is not normal. Michelle don't believe her, stating that John told her about Cambridge, and walks away. After a while, Libby hears Michelle's voice in the lake, and gets in the lakes but sees nothing. Freaked out, she drove off by Michelle's car, but the car gets stuck. Libby then goes to basement and notices symbols on her wrist where the bracelet used to be. She also discovers Michelle in a tank attached to N4, with the same symbols on her wrists and on the walls. She tries to free her mother, but John hears the noise and comes to the basement. Libby hides while John watches Michelle give birth to a dying creature. John leaves with the creature. Meanwhile, Libby calls the police and discovers Marley's body in a water tank being devoured by parasites. John attacks Libby as she tries to escape with Michelle, and she wakes up tied up in a basement. Several men who look identical to John appear and start to peel the walls back to reveal many unconscious women in water tanks. John regurgitates a glowing substance and forces Libby to consume it. Libby awakes once again in a row of water tanks containing other women, apparently in pupae. As water fills her tank, she initially bangs on the glass, but then she smiles when she realizes she can breathe underwater.
Please subscribe for more movie